today to Answer the Call podcast. And we are so excited and honored to have our guest today, Jen Bricker-Bauer. Is that how you like it said?
Yep. That's how it's said.
Great. She is a wonderful individual, and I've had the blessing of becoming friends with her in the past couple years and prayer warriors together. And she helps me with my women's conference as well. So she's one of our keynote speakers for that too. And we're just excited to have her today. So welcome, Jen.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So today we're just going to be casual, and we want people to know more about you.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about you before we get started.
Yep. So the short version is I was born without legs, left in the hospital, put up for adoption, and raised by a very, I don't want to say perfect family because nobody's perfect, right? And they were just the family that God chose to raise me, and it's beyond evident, beyond clear. I mean, it's just, they had never even, I asked them actually fairly recently, which is shocking considering how much I've been interviewed and talked about my life for so many years. I feel like pretty much my whole life I've been interviewed, and even when I was a kid, which people don't realize that. They've seen like the adult interviews for the last, 15, 16 years, but it goes way, some interviews when I was a kid, I'm like, oh, wow, what was that? Like, and you're a kid, I just a totally different frame of mind. But I was like, did you guys like talk about adopting kids, when you got married? Was that something that you were both on board with? Because like for me, that was a deal breaker of who I would marry. Like I remember when I met my husband, he's from Austria. And so we were in Austria and we were sitting somewhere at dinner, and I was like, I had thought, okay, I'm going to talk with him and say, are you open to adopting one day? And I was 98% sure I was going to have to break up with him because I'm like, he's definitely not going to be for it. People in foreign countries, it's just different. It's just not talked about as much here as it is here. It's certainly not like publicly talked about. It's just different. So I assumed, I was just like, I'm going to break up with him. That's just what I'm going to have to do. And then like completely shocked me with his answer. Like, and he was totally open to it. But I was asking my parents that. My mom's like, no, we never talked about it. It was just not, I'm like, so just one day out of nowhere, you were like, heard about a baby girl without legs, and it was just like, yeah, we should just adopt her. Mm-hmm. She's like, yep. I'm like, okay. Wow. And then Dad was just on board with it. And, so it was just, there were so many God moments, sounds cheesy, but I don't know how else to say it, evident presence of God, moves of God, however you want to say it, more refined or whatever, that he was just in it. Like I say, my story starts way before I joined the picture, and which is kind of a weird way to say it, but there was just so much going on in their life with like leading up to the adoption and miracles. And I don't say that lightly. Like there were just so many, it just sounds like made up. I'm like, have I lived 20 lives already? It's just, it's like, that's what I feel like sometimes, Yeah. And they just were the people who had the right hearts. God looks at our hearts. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the most money, the most education. They had zero experience of adoption, kids without legs, disability, nothing. They didn't, but he chose them.
Yes.
Yep.
And they chose you.
And they chose me. Yep.
Yes.
They did,
and they just loved you so much.
They did,
yes. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions here. Mm-hmm. And first question I want to ask is, how have you seen God's hand on your life from the very beginning, which I guess you just answered
Kinda
that,
just answered that, yep.
Yes, which is great.
Everywhere.
Yes, definitely. But when did your faith become personal? Do you know a point in time when it did?
Well, yeah, that's a good question because I was raised with going to church, and it was very foundational in my parents' explanation of explaining everything about me not having legs and about the adoption. So my parents said, it was our answered prayer that we got you. Aww. We prayed for you. You were supposed to be with us. So it really doesn't matter why your biological family gave you up, because ultimately this is why you were supposed to be with us, and don't hate your biological family because you don't know what was going on in their lives. And, there was a lot. And then it was, well, God doesn't make any mistakes with the whole no legs part of it.
Right.
So then it was like, he has a purpose for it. It was so like matter of fact that when you're young, you kind of just believe what your parents tell you, right? So I think, but then when you get older and you see that whatever they told you, they actually believe it, if they actually do, that I believe is a very definitive thing, like as a parent, especially now me being a parent, but it's like living by example, I think is one of the most powerful things that we can do. And for me, when they settle those things, you know, you were born like this for a reason. God has a purpose in it.
Right.
You were supposed to be with us. We prayed for you. You were an answered prayer. It doesn't have much meaning if you realize that whoever's telling you doesn't believe it.
Right.
Once you get old enough to realize that. But everything I saw growing up as I got older was like, it only pounded that in even more. Like they couldn't have believed it more, everything they told me. Right. They really believed what they said. So, same with the faith. They really believed in God. They, you know what I mean? So, when you're younger, I went to church. That's what you did. That's what I, you know. But I think maybe for me, it was a little bit more intertwined, and I was maybe a little bit more aware of it because I didn't have legs to a degree. But I mean, I made the decision at 13 to get baptized and saved. Okay. So, but leading up to that, you know, I read my Bible. I was not reading it every day like I do now. Right. You know, right. But I still made that personal decision. I think probably even before that, but 13, like that's when I actually, and that was a supernatural experience. I was at a teen conference in St. Louis, and there was maybe like probably about 2,000 kids. It was pretty big, and they made like an altar call, and like if anybody wants to come up and get saved, and I was like, I'm definitely not going up there. You know, no way. I don't want to go up there. And the Holy Spirit was like, you're going up there. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not going up there. You know, like it's not happening. I don't want to go up in front of everybody and do all this stuff, you know. And I mean, it was as if I got pulled up. I had no I was going up.
Like
I was like,
because
because I already made the decision in my heart. So, you know, it's not that he forced me to go up to make the decision. I already made the decision. I just didn't want to go up.
Right. Yeah.
And then 2 weeks after that, I got baptized, you know, at home. So, yeah. And then since then, it's just been an evolution, you know, getting stronger, deeper, having all the moving to Florida, working at Disney World, starting performing, traveling around the world. And then you get, you know, a whole different life comes in, you know, and then having to navigate all of that, learn how to be consistent, learn how to make the right choices in the entertainment industry, then in Los Angeles, then, I mean, I guess that's just everybody.
Yeah. Like whirlwind.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has different seasons and different challenges, you know, so.
But you can also say that your faith, your strong faith, has definitely guided you in your decision making.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, that is how the decisions were made.
Yeah. And you can tell the way you live and how you are, that you definitely have a personal relationship with the Lord, which is wonderful. So I love that.
And
thank you.
I'm curious about like being in the entertainment industry. Did you find it hard at all to remain rooted in your faith?
Yeah. So I got thrown in. So basically, I moved to Florida when I was 19 to work at Disney World. It was supposed to be a 5-month internship. I extended it to 8 months, and then I never moved back home. The whole 4 years of high school, plus the year after, I was headed to fashion school. That was the whole plan. So that was for 5 years. Every decision was leading up to that. Well, then I got the internship. Then I stayed in Florida, and once I hit the 1-year residency so that I could just finish the year of community college to then go to fashion school, that's when I met my performing partner. And I had what turned into my performing partner. First, he was just teaching me aerial silks, and then we were messing around on the trampoline while we were waiting to train on the silks. And he was a gymnast and had been an acrobat and aerialist for 10 years. He was 17 years older than me, so big age difference. And then I already, I had tumbled and stuff, so I knew how to flip and stuff, but he basically cleaned up my technique. I got back. I had gained a little weight, got out of shape, wasn't in any sports for like 5 years at that point. And so then we were like doing partner stuff on trampoline, and he was like, this is like, we can do a lot of stuff together, like unique stuff because of how your body is. And so then we ended up putting together not only a silk act, but a trampoline act. And the silks were a whole, oh my gosh, like 5 days a week, bruised, sore, trial and error. How do you do this without legs? Because everything you do, you use your legs in silks, And so, and nobody had ever done it. We thought for sure somebody had done it without legs. We searched everywhere online and this and that. Nobody had done it. So there was nothing. We were like, that's it. We were the ones, And nobody, and everybody was afraid of it at first. And nobody wanted to hire me because they're like, I don't know what to do with you in front of an audience. And so it was this was 17 years ago, which is, I don't know how that's possible. But so I'm leading up because then when, like, just a year and a half after meeting him and about a year into actually performing, which is not that long. It's not like I was even consistently performing a year. It was just like gigs here and there. I got on the Britney tour. We got on the Britney tour with our trampoline act. And that was like, I was 20 when the tour started. I turned 21 on the tour. And that was like being thrown into Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, from... like as green, I didn't get to like ease my way into like, that's like a peak in your career of like your whole career of like your whole life. And so it was very odd, very unusual that would happen at the beginning of your career. I mean, it was especially like when everybody was like, if you mess up, we'll just fire you before your career starts and finish your career before it even started, And it was like a super dangerous and technical act. And it was like all the pressure, at 2021. On the highest grossing tour in the world. So sometimes we had 20,000 people in the place. Like, I've been on TV for millions, but when you have that many people in one place in physical, that is like, there's nothing like that. It is unbelievable. Just the energy and like the nerve. The first, like, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 shows, I was like, nervous beyond belief. And I'm not a nervous person, but that was like everything that pushed me. And so there was a lot of stuff to finally answer your question. But you just kind of had to understand leading up to it. It was like, I just got thrown into all the things, and then being on the Britney tour was a very, it was like you were in this world that you never have imagined, or most people don't. You're just like, oh, it's that celebrity life. So because we were attached to Britney, just because we were on the tour, everyone like wants to give you free stuff. Everybody like, oh, come to this club and free this, and which I didn't even like. I don't like alcohol. I didn't like drink. I never did. So, but like, and all the other things that come with a debaucherous lifestyle. Now, some of the stuff was cool. Like, I got a lot of cool free stuff, like massages and clothing, and I would barter, right. And so like that was cool. Yeah. But there was just, oh my. And so I would say, while I didn't do anything like crazy. I wasn't perfect, but definitely my faith was 100% kept me like, so that was the beginning. And then throughout the whole thing, I mean, yeah, like I spent a ton of time in Dubai performing in very similar atmosphere. I mean, at this point I had been performing much longer, but still, then it was like I was alone. I didn't have a car. We all were in the same apartment complex. We were performed in this, like, it was super high end and fancy, but all that stuff happens there. It's just, there's just more money involved. I mean, Same thing, same Sodom and Gomorrah. And I was not partaking in anything. And they weren't mocking me because everybody respected each other, but they knew, like, oh yeah, she's not drinking and she's not doing this and she's not doing that. And I'm like, yep. I was like, so the strong personality was working for me in that instance.
So you're kind of getting known as like the goody two shoes.
Yes, I'm not a goody two shoes personality wise, and I love to hang and I love the social aspect and I love a lot of things, but there was just a clear line that I didn't cross, and the line would be even much farther back now. That was over 10 years ago already. At 10 years ago, I'd say. So even though I was probably to everybody there, like very straight-laced and didn't partake, I was like the only one of all the performers that even woke up before noon. Like that was the lifestyle, I couldn't stand that. I was like, no. The latest I would sleep was 10 or 11. And that was just because sometimes you have to be up till 4 or 5, which I also didn't like. But so, and there's so many more scenarios I could give you, but to sum it up, yes, definitely, like having a relationship with Jesus, like, man, even though I made a lot of mistakes in my life, it definitely kept me from way more, and it kept me clear-minded, which now I realize is a huge gift. I was just always kind of, that was like an expected thing that I had a clear mind, and then I knew what I was supposed to do, and then I knew what my purpose was, and I knew what he wanted me. That was like always the biggest thing for me, is that I just want to do what he's calling me to do, and I need to know it. And if I know it, I'm going to do it. Yeah. So that was everything, I would say, through all of that, through all the absolute craziness. Yeah. I know.
That was a good one.
Way too long of an answer.
No,
that was good.
I felt that it was necessary.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's very good. Yeah, so I'm going to hit a little bit on, which we know you didn't have many limitations, but in the real world, people would see you as having limitations. But I looked up a few scriptures. I'm going to read John 9:1-5. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." And I just love this because it really makes me think of you. I don't know why. When I was looking stuff up, but I just love that scripture because when people think of disabilities or whatever, my daughter has the disability. And you and her, you guys just make me think a lot of one another. And I told Caitlin today, I said, we've got to get you and Jen together just to have lunch and talk about things. But what was kind of neat, too, when I was reading this and going over things for this podcast, I don't know if you realize it, but my dad was your bus driver.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
When you were little, yes.
Oh.
And we've been together, but I haven't had time to tell you. But my dad was a preacher, and he was your bus driver. And I'll never forget, because when you first started riding the bus, he came home and he told all of his kids, he's like, "Oh, we got Jen Bricker, and she has no legs." But you guys wouldn't believe her because you would never know. He said she just shimmies right up those bus steps. And he said, "But listen, kids, when somebody is born with a disability, the Lord blesses them in so many ways." And I think of that a lot, like with you.
Wow.
And then I think of that with Caitlin. And so a lot of times I just put you two together in that aspect. But do you ever think that, have you ever said, "Why me?" Or do you ever think that because of your limitation, what people would consider limitations, do you consider them limitations, or do you feel it is a way to make you work harder, drive harder, and follow the Lord more?
Well, first of all, I can't believe you said that scripture because my husband has said that from that scripture, exactly what you said, which no one has ever said that before. I've never thought that. And it's so amazing. It's just amazing that you said that because I completely agree. It's like oh yeah, like that's because I've said it before. I just had never connected it to the scripture. Because I'm like, God, are you just like, you must be funny because you are like doing all these crazy things through me, knowing I don't have legs, knowing what everyone thinks, and you're just confusing everybody, you know? And I think it's funny. I mean, I genuinely just, because of the things I've seen and the people's faces and the reactions, and I'm like, I get it. I know that it's not normal. Not just having legs. I mean, not having legs and tumbling and flying in the air and all that stuff.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to expect people to think that about me. Although, I say that, and then just the other day at the open book Christian store, there was like a, 9 or 10-year-old girl in the kids section, and I was there with Malachi, and she was like, you look like a gymnast. Are you a gymnast? And I was like,
Wow.
I said, what made you say that? And she was like, well, I'm in gymnastics and you look like you are. And I was like, well, actually, I kind of am. I mean, and I showed her what we did, and she was like, that's amazing. Oh, I love you. And I was just like,
Aw.
and I've had that happen. So it's happened in LA, but just because I thought, well, LA, people are just aware of like the arts and everybody works out and everybody just, it's different. You know, the population is just very different.
Right.
And so I've had people come up to me and say those kind of things too. But the average person is not going to be like, oh, yeah, you're an aerialist and an acrobat. Like, okay, you know? So definitely, God he's using, you know, the things of the world and, you know, to basically to show what he can do.
Yes.
Through somebody, through any circumstance, it doesn't matter. And that is, like, you can't hear and see my life and not acknowledge, you just can't deny it. It's so obvious. Like, I mean, it's like hardcore obvious without even saying it.
Yes.
And so I certainly believe, I think he wants to do that with everybody's life. He just made mine like outwardly visible. And so that it's just automatically a conversation starter. And then a lot of very crazy once in a million things happened in my life. So, but I know it's to point back to him to be like, see what he can do. Not only see what he can do, but see how good he is.
Right.
See that everything you think, he turns it around. That you think being born without legs, left in the hospital, put up for adoption, not wanted, not given a name, however you want to dramatize it, even legitimately, these things don't sound like a good way to start your life. But he just works you can't put a situation before God that is difficult or that confuses him or that's complicated or that it's too much.
Right.
That's just how big he is. And I think that is very evident in my life, like over and over from the beginning to the middle to the, like where we are now. I mean, he just doesn't stop, you know? And when I was younger, I just didn't really see myself, or I should say, it's such a thing to say now, but I've been saying this forever. I never identified or connected with being disabled, like ever.
Right.
Not because I genuinely, the way I grew up and the way I was treated was so normal that, and I also didn't know anybody who was disabled, so I didn't have any friends that were, so I was like, as if I didn't have a disability looking at somebody who did. Like I was, and I was also very strong, and I was an athlete, and I was in all the sports. So if you would have asked me or my friends at any point when we were kids how to describe me or, you know, characteristic traits, they would definitely say I talked all the time. Okay, the teachers would say that too. And good, uses her time wisely on the report card, but she talks too much, always. And that I was very strong, I was athletic, I was social, I was, all that. That's how I thought of myself. And I was like the strong one. I was the capable one. I was fit. I was, so it's just, it sounds hard to believe now as an adult because you think, well, how did you not see yourself like that? It also had to do with being in a small town and we all grew up together. So I wasn't bullied or anything like that. It was just normal, And also I know that because I was okay with it and I wasn't weird about it, nobody else was weird about it. Right. So that there's just that is an element. So as a kid, I don't remember asking why or thinking why. Maybe I don't remember it. And then as I got older, it became more of a issue just because I was like thrown into all the world and all the countries and all the travel and all the things. And I was just this person that didn't fit in any box, really. I fit in like multiple boxes, but not one complete box. And so then that's like for example, flying on a plane. You know, they're like, they have their protocol. If there's a wheelchair. It's not a person, it's just a wheelchair. You know, there's a wheelchair and there's a protocol, and this is what you do. The chair goes underneath the plane. You give them this chair that will fit through the aisles, and they push you, and they, you know, so they associate, because the majority of people in a wheelchair can't walk.
Right.
I just happen to not be that kind, right? So, and I was like, and I'm keeping my wheelchair on the plane, and I had my own things, and they think if you're in a wheelchair, you never travel. I traveled extensively, like every single month, always going somewhere multiple times, and so so some people would react with a lot of attitude, and I did not always respond the right way. I had a big learning curve, because my natural response is to give them attitude. I'm good at it. I'm quick. And that was like God had to really work on my attitude, big time. Because at first I was just so shocked that somebody would think of me that way. I'm like,
right.
Like when I first started working at Disney World, that's where it started. So people from all over the world come there, and people from other countries react very differently. I learned that real fast. That was the first thing I learned. And then people just who don't know me respond very differently. And some people thought that I was a war vet, and I was it was so funny, because the first time somebody said that, they just said vet. And I actually, when I was younger, wanted to be a veterinarian.
Yes.
So like when they said something like, oh, something about being a vet, and I was like, I actually wanted, and midway I was like, oh, I see what vet you mean now. It clicked halfway through, and I was like, but it was just such a culture shock.
Yeah.
I was 19, and everything was like, wait, you view me like what? I'm like, don't you know, like, that I'm the capable, like, no, nobody knows here? Okay, no one knows anything. I see. So like it was a huge shift of how I was treated my whole life until 19. And then I go, and it's like everyone has all their preconceived notions, which is normal, but it just wasn't normal for me.
Right.
And that was just Americans. Then it was like a whole different category of like foreigners. The staring and the what we would consider very rude behavior, but not in their culture, So big eye-opening like experience, and I had to deal with my attitude with all that too. I think there's a theme here.
You got hit with a lot at once, it seems like. Yes.
That's true. Yeah.
So I'm sure it was a culture shock and eye-opening and all the above that you got thrown into.
It was a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you also put me in the mind of, like I said in the scripture about limitations. But you know what? You put me in the mind of a person that no matter what, if somebody said you couldn't do it, you were going to do it. I don't know, but you just put me. That's like Caitlin. They would try to put limitations on her. Well, we're not going to bat you because you're too high risk, and I'm afraid that you'll get hurt. So what does she do? She's like, oh yeah, right. So she gets up to the plate and she hits a home run. Well, how can they not bat her after they see her hit a home run?
Yep.
So I don't know. Were you kind of like that? If you didn't want to be known as having limitations, so you were going to make it well known that you didn't have any. You wanted to do things on your own.
It was not even like that for me, because, and this, I know it sounds like but if there were people who were saying I couldn't do it, I never heard that. Not as a kid. I certainly didn't hear it from my parents. I didn't hear it from my coaches. Now, that is a different entirely than as being an adult. All the time heard it. But as a kid, I don't even know if it was that my parents shielded me from it or not. I don't even think doesn't really seem like them, but I didn't do things to prove people wrong. That I know. But I just had this drive in me that like had to be from God, because my parents are like, it wasn't from us.
Yeah.
Like, they never pushed me into tumbling. They never pushed me into any sport. I was just like, I have like this strong personality, you know, that's just like, I'm gonna do it. And I remember like I was really hard on myself though, you know, so I would be like, I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to pick it up immediately. I wanted to be the best. I wanted, you know, so that I remember my coaches were like, okay, you know, like the other way with me, you know. I just I was really focused. I was a focused kid.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, at 10 years old, I just knew that God had a plan for my life, and that it was going to affect the world, which is like just, you know. And I said it, I was so confident, and I told my parents. Just like, I just knew. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I'd be doing. But I knew that. And so I'm not sure if that was like, I don't even know if I connected it to everything I did. I don't think. I just knew that. And then I had everything was such a strong desire to like whatever it was, you know. And a lot of those are good things, but then you have to like figure out how to deal with that later when you have everything is so strong. Everything is a strong emotion, you know, a strong opinion, I think it was discernment, but it was before I knew the word discernment and understood what it meant.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know, like I would just speak with like all the confidence and a clarity. And I was like, that's it. Part of it is my dad is like that. One of his gifts, he doesn't even know it, but one of his gifts, he's just very clear-minded, very black and white, and he doesn't speak what he doesn't mean. He speaks what he means. Yeah. So I think it was both that I had that gift and that I was raised that way too. But then when you're a teenager and you're getting older and you're trying to like deal with, like, I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
I just would be like, no, I know this is true. Like, you know, and that is not always going to come across right to people, you know. So, yeah, that was kind of, you had to work through that. But I would say for myself, I had the freedom now, I see, to make decisions purely because, like, I loved the sports. I loved them. My parents encouraged me. My coaches were amazing. They didn't treat me differently. And I was just doing my thing. Like, I was just focused, doing what I was supposed to, you know, wanted to do, and that was it. And I didn't even have any, like, I think now in school there was certain things that, just logistical things, and I was like, I'm going to do it this way, you know?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Again, right?
Yeah.
So, but having to learn how to do that the godly way, and like have the right behavior and conduct, and especially when people are just saying stupid things and being condescending, you know?
Yeah.
Not, almost never do people mean it. I've had some people who meant it, but very rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So could you tell us the story of did you always know that you were adopted? Okay.
Yes.
So could you tell us the story about your sister and how you found out, and just that whole story, if you don't mind?
Yep, I always knew I was adopted. I knew my biological family was Romanian, and my parents were just open and honest about all of it, which I think is the best thing they could have done. And so I didn't have I felt like all my questions were answered, you know, so I was like, okay. Then right before I turned 16, my friend who was also adopted had, for whatever reason, I don't know, found out what her biological last name would have been, which is just so mysterious, you know, when you're adopted.
Oh, yeah.
And up until that point, I never had any questions, thoughts, anything about my biological family. Never. Because I kind of knew everything that I could know, you know. And pretty sure, you know, I was like, yeah, they probably gave me up for adoption because I didn't have legs, and there was communism and a whole different mentality and whatever. And I don't know the rest, and it doesn't matter, right? So then, but all of a sudden it was like, I wonder what my biological last name would have been. You know, it was like out of nowhere. And even weirder that I would go home and ask my mom, is there anything you know, do you know anything else about my biological family? Why would I even ask that? Like, they were so open and honest. It's so out of character. And so that had to be the Holy Spirit that put that thought for me to ask, because it doesn't align with anything else. And so I did, and it was like I didn't, even when I asked, I'm like, I don't know, why am I even asking? I know the answer. It's going to be no. And then she said yes, and I was like, no. Like, you don't know. What do you, like, what could you possibly know about my biological family, and you wouldn't have already told me? And then she's like, you know, you're never going to believe it. And she was right. But she just puts this, she goes and gets like a manila envelope full of papers, documents, and all kinds of stuff. And she's like, well, your biological last name would have been Moceanu. And that's not a normal last name here. So I knew what it meant, because when I was a kid, 6, 7, 8, watching the Olympics in the 96 Olympics, I was drawn to Dominique Moceanu. She was on the Team USA. She was the little one, the young one. And I just thought we looked alike. And I knew that she was on Team USA, but I knew her parents were Romanian. So, like, her blood was Romanian. I was like, so's mine. And don't we look alike? And you know, I even actually said, my parents told me, because I don't remember saying it, but I at one point was like, oh, what if we were related? Don't we look alike? You know? And they're just like, and they knew at that point. And so they figured it out because I was watching her on TV. Everybody was, you know, it was different. You didn't have like a billion channels back then, and Netflix was not a thing. So everybody kind of watched the Olympics, or like the 2 channels you had.
Yes.
And so, so everybody was watching the Olympics, and gymnastics especially. And I loved gymnastics. I was like, just already had loved it. And I was just drawn to her. Because when you're adopted, nobody really looks like you. And so it was kind of cool to have somebody who looked like me, and who liked the same stuff, and was the same, like, blood, like the descendant, you know.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was so cool. It made me feel like so cool, you know, that I had, like, Romanian blood or whatever.
Yeah.
So one day they were, I don't know, talking about Dominique, and they showed her parents in the audience with the names, Dimitri and Camelia Moceanu. And my mom was just like, man, why does that sound familiar? And I don't know how she even connect the thought of, obviously it had to be God. And this is like 7 years after she adopted me, or 6 years.
Wow.
And she looks at the adoption papers, and she's like, that's the name. And yeah, they look alike. And she had a sibling 6 years older. And she just starts doing all the math, you know. And then I don't know how the gap in between the time that happened, and then they also saw like a story, and Christina, my younger sister, had been born. And it was like they showed some, like, you know, family video, like behind the scenes. And it was like Christina was sitting on a bed, and apparently there was just a certain way that I would, like, with my hands, that I would lean or something, and I had really long hair. And apparently it was like, it looked like you sitting on the bed.
Wow.
But we looked so much alike, and we're not even 2 years apart. So they were just like, and they saw that on TV. So all this stuff, and then they realized, okay, that's her family. This is crazy. So it was supposed to be a closed adoption, another miracle. They got information they were not supposed to have.
Wow.
Supposed to be blacked out. And the social worker knew it was supposed to be blacked out, and still gave it to my parents.
Well, good.
That's not even legal. I don't, that can't be.
Right.
I'm like, what came over you? Like, I don't understand that.
God
so
thing.
it totally,
Yes.
completely supernatural, makes no sense
Yes.
whatsoever. Because without those documents, then she wouldn't have, she probably would have figured it out. But that was like the legal, for sure, 100%, like, that's her sister. And so, so then when I asked her at 16, so they weren't going to tell me until I was 18, because that was like the legal thing. But they weren't going to lie to me when I asked. So that's how it came out. Then it was 4 years of me being a little investigator, trying to figure it out and do it the right way, and a lot of failed attempts, a lot of discouragement, and eventually I was successful at the very end of 2007, December 2007. And I got Dominique's address through my uncle was a private investigator to add to the story.
Wow.
So it just keeps going. I'm
It
like,
all worked together.
sometimes I'm like, I don't even, if I say that at this point, they're going to be like, she's definitely lying. Yeah. I wasn't. I'm not. But,
Yeah.
so I got her address. I sent her copies of the legal documents with her parents' signature. I sent a letter and then pictures because it was like undeniable, the resemblance between not only me and Christina, but all three of us. So, yeah, then she responded to me end of 2007. We had our first phone call January 2008, her and I, and then Christina and I were like texting like crazy, you know, and all the similarities. It was like twins that were separated at birth. All, I mean, it was just crazy. Yeah. Then we all met May of 2008, and it's like, I don't know, it was so much to process that it was almost like, for a second, I panned out for a minute and like I was watching the scene. You know, I've never had that happen before, even since then. Yeah. But it was just, it's so hard to like comprehend that you're like, you know, like if a computer is over processing and it just starts like smoking,
Right.
that would be me at that moment. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was in the middle of before when I told you everything leading up and all the culture shock. And this was all at the same time. It was like, what is happening? Like it was an insane, like I mean, a lot of lives in a short amount of time. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And that was even before like the speaking started and the book and like all this, which I forgot. Sorry. Maybe I have one in the car. But anyway, so yeah, just a lot. And then that was just, I was the baby. I had 3 older brothers. Now I'm the middle of 3 sisters. So that was a whole different dynamic. Wow. You know? Yeah. And they never knew about me, you know, which is what we expected. So.
Wow. Say God gives us little things in little puzzle pieces. And it's our duty to get all those pieces together to see the full puzzle, the full picture. And it sounded like God was just giving you piece after piece after piece. Wow, how amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
So. I have been curious because, I mean, you've lived in a lot of different places. I mean, you were out in California and stuff like that. What led you guys to move back home? Because I grew up in Champaign, Illinois, and then moved up to Milwaukee area. And my wife's family is from down here, and I have always been very resistant to living down here because there's just such a difference between what I grew up with, because I always grew up in larger areas. And I heard you speak and you were talking about moving back here and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, if someone like that can be here and be truly happy and stuff like that, it's like, then I can suck it up and I can be happy too.
That's hilarious. It was God. It was not me. At any point. So I moved away in 2007 and I was gone for 16 years and never, ever, ever did I imagine moving back here. No, and I love my family. You know, it's just that
And I don't want to people to think that we live in like a crap hole or anything like that. Like it's a lovely community that we live in.
It very much. I mean, I've spoken about this community all over the world and how it affected me, which is really coming full circle now in my life. Really full circle. But I never, ever in a million years ever thought I could even live here with my career. I thought I need to live pretty close to an international airport because I'm always going somewhere. Yeah. And I would go overseas also multiple times a year for speaking gigs or performing or whatever. This was like for years. I mean, this was just my life. So I was like, well, I can't. I mean, I have to live in a major city by a major airport. LAX was about as major as it gets. And it really served me well because I went to Asia a lot. I went to that part of the world a lot. And LA was like the only place you could get direct flights for a long time. I was on the first round of direct flights to Dubai from LA for years, which was so amazing for me because especially with having a wheelchair, having to lay over and get out and do it all over again and a whole new crew and the whole argument again. I'm like, please, one plane. That's it. Let me just get on and then get off in Dubai. Like, that's all I need. And I was going there a lot. So it was really, and alone. So really convenient for me. And Japan and Southeast Asia and Malaysia and just all kinds of stuff. Wow. And so I was supposed to be there at that point for a year. I was there for 12 years. And we had a gig. My husband and I had a big contract for about 3 months in D.C. with this circus show that we were performing with. It was a variety show. And we were doing our silk act, and so it was just we were so excited about it. This contract. Was like amazing in the most epic venue. It was so great in D.C. It was where Cirque du Soleil was, and it was just awesome. So we had sublet our apartment in L.A. so that while we were gone, we weren't paying this extremely expensive rent and not being there. And so worked all that out. I found a couple to stay in our place. And then packed up for 3 months and drove cross country from LA to DC. Wow. And and the second or third day of rehearsal, they call everybody in to cancel morning rehearsals. And we're like, oh no, what's happening? And this was the end of 2021. So everybody was still like really weird with COVID. So we're just like, oh great. We thought that's what it was. Something weird had happened like in that arena. And we were the first ones, just for whatever. We just happened to be scheduled as the first in the meetings. And then they told us that the whole thing was canceled. And we're like, what? No way. We're like so disappointed, so confused. I mean, they told us things, but who knows what actually. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Everything is not happening anymore. And that was like, ooh, not only... like just I was looking forward to it, but also financially. It was a really good contract. Yeah. So that was a big, big bummer, totally just unforeseen. And so our apartment was rented out in LA, so we couldn't go back there. It was Thanksgiving time, so after the rehearsals at this point, it was like into early December. So we're like, the only place to go is my parents for now to figure out our life, like even where we're living at this point, and what are we doing with our lives. Like every major decision in life was in 1 second a big question mark. Wow. And the rug was pulled out underneath us. So we come to my parents. We live in the camper for what turned out to be 7 months, which was like the most unexpected. Like, you just could have never predicted that. Mm-hmm. And we were just so frustrated and mad and like, God, what happened? We were so prayerful and careful to even take the contract. Mm-hmm. We're like, what did we miss? Where did we go wrong? What happened? Like, we know we were supposed to go. We know we were supposed to do this. Wow. And so we're very confused. Well, in that not even in a month, in a week, in that end of the year in December, we moved back here. I called Penny Stevens, and was like, okay, can we like book some gigs while we're here for like a couple? We were at that point like, oh, we'll be here for like a month, maybe two, in between all of our travel, which we had no work because everything was supposed to be booked. So we had nothing. Wow. In December, we had nothing.
There was stuff in your contract that said you didn't get any kind of compensation, even if it...
Yeah, because there was none to be given. You know what I mean? They didn't have the money. Yeah. Wow. So they paid us for 2 weeks. Everybody stayed and put the show together. So that was at least good. They paid us for that. And we got a show established, which actually was the best thing we could have done. Because then later, everything, we performed all over with them for 4 years. But that was not a good way to start. And... So Penny booked us like a couple churches, and then before we know it, I mean, it was like completely supernatural. We were booked every single week in January, sometimes multiple in 1 week. Wow. January, February, March. Well, then we were so busy we couldn't go back to LA, so we're like, you want to stay in our apartment a month longer? Okay, so they extended. Then we were, we were at, I think, 25 or 30 churches that year, in addition to about 30 performances.
Wow.
In one, we were busy every single week of the year, sometimes double. We had a month and a half break in the summer that was to renovate our house that we had bought, because in that time, which still I was, all this was happening, we were here, and I was still not even considering like that we were going to live here. No, I was like, no, this is just like, we're just going to, it's a holding pattern of we're just too busy. We're going to eventually go back to LA. And then it was like, Dominic's like, my husband, he's like, why don't we just go look at houses? I'm like, why would we look at houses here? Why would we even, why are we looking, you're just wasting your time. Why do you want to look at houses? Well, I don't know. He's not from the U.S., so he's like, well, I want to see what the housing market's like here. I'm like, here? Like, this is, what? Like, I was like, why are we, I just know, He's like, well, then if it's a no, then it's a no. I'm like, it's a no. Like, well, I don't even, and then just all these things, like, he was just getting job offered. Like, I'm like, what in the world is happening? It was just so confusing to me, because I thought, how can we live here and do what we do? Well, it turns out, so then we ended up buying a house, and we were so busy that year. We didn't even live in it for the first 2 months that we had bought it, because we were gone, So it was like, and it was actually an amazing believe it or not, we are in such a central location that, it was like we could drive places for once. In LA, you had to, unless you drove to Vegas or San Diego, which, Vegas, a couple of times we drove for training and stuff. But, like, here you can drive everywhere. And even if you fly, it's short flights. Mm-hmm. Every flight was long unless you were on the West Coast from LA, because you'd fly everywhere else. So it's like this, almost as if you were flying to Europe sometimes. If you flew to New York or Boston, it was almost like, it was like a 5-hour flight. Well, you could be in Europe by 6.5 hours, So it was like, and you haven't even left the country. But so God I ended up here because God put us here. Mm-hmm. And it has been, and that was way before I was pregnant. And so, I could never have imagined, like, it's just so good being here. I just couldn't have seen that. Mm. I couldn't comprehend that. Like, younger me in LA, traveling all nonstop, doing all the things. Never desired it, never imagined it would, never. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to live anywhere else. Total 180. Wow. It's completely different lifestyle than how I lived before, Mm-hmm. But you find your little foodie places, and you find your, yeah. And I'm married, and I have a kid, and everybody around here who was so supportive to me is the same way with me. Like, it didn't change. This is a very special place. Mm-hmm. And I have always said that. That I have always said. Because it's the people who chose to pour into me, teachers, coaches, friends, everybody, obviously family, but everybody else here who added to that, really affected me positively. And it's still like that. Good. So obviously God knew what he was doing and placing us here,
Right.
And even still, we thought, well, we're not going to be here forever. And now we're like, we might. Actually, we might, Yeah. And we are okay with it, because where else would we be? We're like, we don't actually want to be anywhere else. Like a complete 180.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So Dominic loves being here too.
He does, yep. Well, it's actually more like where he grew up.
Oh, okay.
A lot of socially different things, but he grew up on a farm. He grew up in a very, very small village.
Oh, okay.
Pretty rural.
Farmers, all completely rural.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's very similar. He said he feels way more comfortable here than he felt in LA. I was like completely comfortable in LA. I was like, this is where I belong. This is my life. Uh-huh. But after 2020, I lived in Austria for a year. When I came back after that, it was different. And I no longer wanted to be there. It was like a light switch. I was like, okay, time to leave. Don't want to be here anymore. And that was it. Like, it was just the time that 12-year season was done, So.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yep.
So, I guess we could start wrapping up a little bit, you think?
Yeah. We want to be respectful of your time.
Yes. So, is there anything that you would like to say to the listeners to give them a positive outlook if they're dealing with things right now that, it's evident that you've wonderful, amazing story and you've dealt with a lot of things in your life. Could you give our listeners any positive influence whatsoever if they're dealing with something and how to overcome some situations that they're dealing with?
Well, one thing God has always put on my heart, every speech, so I never have used notes in my speeches, ever. That's just something that God told me in the beginning, which is a little bit wild for people to believe, but it's just what he told me.
Thank you for that, because I think when speakers don't use notes or anything like that, it is so much more, it's more authentic, and it's a lot more entertaining to watch people. My wife, she speaks a lot, and she never uses notes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's so much more engaging that way.
I prefer being on the other end of that too, listening to somebody. But in the beginning, it was very intimidating. I was very young. I started speaking way before I thought I was going to, way before. Like, that was the retirement job, but that's not what God had planned. I'm like, oh. And it was very unusual to be a very young girl, young lady, I suppose, in the speaking arena, especially as I got higher up. That is such a pretentious thing. As God took me into these places where everybody else thinks like that. I should say that. I never thought that way. I knew, because I'm like, I don't, you all want to be here for a different reason. I didn't want to be a speaker. He drugged me here. I didn't want this. I eventually started appreciating it, but it just, So, but the thing I think that he has really put on my heart, the one thing I would always mention at the end of my speech, where everything else would be different, but he would always have me put on, just to remind people or to encourage people or to tell people if they've never been heard it, that you're here for a reason. Every single person is here for a reason. Whether you believe in God or not, you're here for a reason. He put you here. He gave breath in your life, and he gave all of us talents and abilities and gifts, however you think of it in your mind. It might be your hobby. It might be things that you say, oh, I'm just so passionate about X, Y, and Z. Or I'm a really good listener. Or I really like math. Or I'm just good at volleyball. Or I'm just good at... He gave you those things. Two, even though if you think okay, how is me being good at volleyball going to do anything for the Lord? How is me being a chef going to do anything for the kingdom? If you have submitted your life to him and that's what he's called you to do, that's going to bring glory to him, and it's going to somehow, in some way, I don't know, I can't do that. He can only do that. But he has to call people into every part of a firefighter, a police officer, a chef, a banker, a teacher, a stay-at-home mom. People are, you don't have to just work in a church to have how you would consider a ministry. So God wants to work through everybody. But it's this lie that people believe that they're worthless or of less value. Maybe you might even think you have worth, but just less than that person. That already is just the wrong mentality. You're beating yourself down, you're discouraged, you're paralyzed, you're not moving, and it is taking away who he said you are and what he wants for you. And that's for everybody. It's not just for special people. And so I would just love to hopefully encourage whoever's listening that he has a plan for you. You're here for a reason. It doesn't matter what happened in your life or how bad your beginning you thought someone thinks that your beginning was, or your middle was, or your current is, or what you think your future. That's just not. Go to the Word and see what God says of you. And if you don't know the Word and if you don't believe in him, ask if he's real. Just ask him. He's going to show up. If you really want to know the truth, you're always going to find it. But I want to encourage people to know that they have value that is more than they can imagine. And they have something to offer. And what we have to offer has eternal value. That's what's to me, just, man, that gets me excited, because it doesn't compare to anything temporary. Anything on the earth is it's going to be done at some point. It has an expiration date.
Right.
But what we do here for him carries into the kingdom. So when we stand before him and what we do is measured, whether it burns up in fire or it's going to, withstand it like gold, and then that goes into your eternity. That's forever. So it has eternal consequences. And that can be a very positive, that can be a good thing.
Right.
That can be an eternal reward. That can be a certain position that you get when we're crossed over into heaven or, working for the kingdom. It's like very exciting. But if you don't believe any of that, if you've been beaten down, even if it's you beating yourself down, and we all have done that, that can just stop the plans of him. And I want that for everybody. I want everybody to live, to experience living. That's living.
Right.
Like, wow, I can wake up and know that who created me has a purpose for me. And so I can live with purpose and I actually have something to do today. And what I do and what I don't do affects me for the rest of like the long, long time, like the forever kind of time,
Right.
And so that is, what can stand up against that?
Right.
In terms of what's more valuable to get you out of bed every day and to keep you doing it for the next 20 years. Yeah. Nothing keeps you in longevity except knowing that he has a plan for you. Everything else I know, it doesn't last. You might ride the high, you might ride the wave. Maybe something lasts for more than a year consistently. Because if you're just a strong personality and you have a discipline and you can do it, been there and I have done that. I am that person. But I didn't give myself these gifts and I didn't make these opportunities for myself. Everything good in me and all my gifts and talents are from him to be used for him. Right. To be like, look what he can do,
Exactly.
I couldn't have done, it's just as impossible. You know what I mean? You can't, I didn't create myself. I didn't make myself be born, and I didn't give myself the gifts. You know what I mean? I just came into agreement and said, okay, I believe that you know more than I do, so you lead my life, and I'm going to follow you. Yeah. That's what he's asking for of us,
Yes. That's great.
Yeah.
That when you were talking about that and how we were created and stuff, it made me go back to the scripture right here, Psalm 139, 13 through 16. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. Yeah, you were talking about that, and it just really made me think of that scripture.
Amen. Yeah, that's spot on.
Yes.
Totally. And you know what's odd is I see my book right over there on the shelf.
Oh, it is?
Oddly enough.
Well, you want to get it, Clint? Because I was going to have a...
Second shelf right in the middle.
Oh, okay.
There's about 4. Yep.
Oh, good.
So there you go.
So I told her to bring one. And
God's like, don't worry, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, there's just 4 of them.
So what is the best way that our listeners can follow you? And would you like to tell them a little bit about your book, where they can get your book, and how they can follow you, see where you're at, where you're speaking, if anybody would like to come listen to you speak or any of the above?
Yeah.
Hold it up.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram, Jen Bricker, at Jen Bricker. It'll come up Jen Bricker-Bauer, but, either way. YouTube, same thing, at Jen Bricker, or Jen Bricker. You can just type it in. Jen Bricker-Bauer, either one, it'll come up. And the book is Everything is Possible. And you can get it on Amazon, I think, still. If not, reach out and you can just get them straight from us and I can sign it. And, we order copies, too, from the publishing company when we run out. So either way, even if Amazon is run out, we can get them through. The publishing company's been great. So
now, if somebody wants to book you to speak or come to anything, they can do that on your website.
JenBricker.com. Okay. Or, people reach out in any kind of way. So
Okay, great.
But, yeah, they can go through the official way on the website, JenBricker.com, or you can just reach out on, social media and just be like, hey, and then I route you to the right place.
Okay,
so,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Amazon, it is available for Kindle, audiobook, hardcover, and paperback.
Oh, okay, cool. Good to know. I like that. Yeah, so it was a New York Times bestseller, so this was before it became that. So then they did the second printing with the soft covers, and now they kind of brought, there's not many hardcovers, but if you can get them on Amazon, that's awesome. And they have pictures in the middle, which I love, because for a while they were reprinting them without the pictures, and then they brought the pictures back. So I'm like very thankful for that. I don't even know why they did that, but yeah.
Huh.
So yeah,
Okay, well, good.
yeah.
All right. So we are very honored to have you.
Yes, thank you for coming.
And we want to
Thanks.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
and we want to thank you for being in this area and
Well,
get to know you very well.
Mhm.
And also going to be speaking at our women's conference here
Yes.
in Robinson,
I'm
Illinois.
excited about that.
Yes, November 8th. We're having one at Crawford County Christian Center
Mhm.
again this year. This is our second one. Yeah. So
Which is-
we're excited about that. Last year it was great, and I expect God's already moving already, and so I expect this one to be even bigger,
Yeah.
better.
I was
It's
so
great.
impressed last year. I was so glad that you were just obedient. It didn't make any sense. It was like, not, I mean, to me it did, but to the outside it didn't.
Yeah.
But you were like, that's what the Lord said. I'm like, then that's what we do. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even care,
I just couldn't believe how quickly it all came together.
I know. And how many people showed up?
I know.
I was like, that is so awesome. You were like, you were obedient. And I was like, and that's what he does.
Yeah, he does.
That's what you heard. And I'm like, good
Yeah.
for you. Because, there were some people like, well, it should be a different date. And I was like, nope. I was like right there with you. I'm like, no.
Yeah,
I don't know how this is turning out. And I didn't think there would be that many people either.
yeah, I didn't either.
But I was like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just what he said.
Yep.
So doesn't even matter the people. But I was just so happy to see that,
I know. It was definitely proof that when you're obedient and you follow like the names he gave me and everything, like you were one of the first ones.
That's so,
And
yeah.
it was just wild.
Yeah.
But every aspect of that was God. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting that this year too.
Yep.
Just the way he's working already is just amazing. And this year we got Clint on board, so he's going to
Awesome.
help us out with
Are you gonna film
marketing
some?
and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so
more marketing and
That's
stuff like
good.
that.
yeah.
That's good.
So-
Yeah.
Pack that place.
I mean, it was packed. That's the thing. It's like, I mean, I'm like, I don't even, how are we, there was not much more room.
No, but I'm hoping we can maybe turn into an overflow somewhere,
Yeah.
just in case.
Yep.
So we're going to work on that too. But yeah,
I'm
I've got
looking
some
forward to it.
ideas. So anyway, I'm excited, and yes, thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys.
And we
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate it.